Hey, what's up, guys? I am gonna be continuing the book reads on Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. See if you can see that in there. We're changing locations a little bit today, so forgive me, but wanted to obviously keep reading with you guys and keep uploading content. So we are within the action section of The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and today we'll be continuing to read on the strategies within that. Today's topic is iterate, is the concept we'll be diving into. So this chapter is truly all about failure. However, we learn to view failure in a new and fresh perspective. So, for those that have either dealt with a lot of failure in their life or struggle to deal with failure, this will be a great short but impactful episode for you guys. So, just to kind of dive into the book here. So, failure really can be an asset if what you're trying to do is to improve, learn, and do something new. It's the preceding feature of nearly all successes. There's nothing shameful about being wrong, about changing course. Each time it happens, we have new options. Problems become opportunities. So let's break that down just a little bit. So, first off, the failure in and of itself, the experience, if you will, can be an asset instead of a liability. So, right there is the first kind of injection to say, okay, even though this did not come and have the outcome we wanted, it can be, an opportunity for us to learn. With that, it is the preceding feature to all success. So, rarely, if ever, do we go to do something for the first time and complete that to success. So it's almost as if you're trying something new or really kind of building up to learn a skill set, you will fail in that skill set consistently because it precedes success, meaning that you've never done it before. So you're going to have to do it a handful of additional times before you know how to do it successfully. Um, though that is straightforward, I think it's a very interesting way to understand, okay, if I'm going after a big goal, if I'm doing something that I've never done before, I must accept the fact that I'm going to consistently fail my way to success, which is essentially gaining enough experience to then do something successful. Um, and then here we turn the page over. Embrace failure and feedback. It gets stronger by failure, dropping the features that don't work, the customers don't find interesting, and then focusing the developers' limited resources on improving the features that do. In a world where increasingly work ourselves, are responsible for ourselves, it makes sense to view ourselves like a startup of one. And that means changing the relationship with failure. It means iterating, failing, and improving. Our capacity to try is linked with our ability to tolerate or linked with our ability and tolerance to fail. So just a quick pause before we continue. What this is essentially saying is that every one of us as a human, we need to view ourselves in some ways like a startup business where there's a lot of growing pains. We really got to take time to put things together before we can even get into the beginner phase. But this should be a good thing because small companies or a company of one in this particular setup has the ability to really learn quickly, fail often, and adapt ourselves to become the best version of what we're trying to accomplish. So on the path to successful action, we will fail, possibly many times, and that's okay. It can be a good thing even. Action and failure are two sides of the same coin. One does not come without the other. What breaks this critical connection down is when people stop acting because they've taken failure the wrong way. When a failure does come, ask, what went wrong here? What can be improved? What am I missing? This helps birth alternative ways of doing what we need to be done, ways that are often much better than what we started with. Failure puts you in corners you think that you have to think your way out of. It is a source of breakthroughs. And so now we've just gone from a transition to not only understanding failure as an asset, but being able to look at it a completely fresh and new lens, as was promised to kind of begin this episode. And it can be a good thing in the sense of we're only processing what we can through our action. And so, really, to kind of drive that home, failure puts us in the situation where we have to truly adapt our mindset to find new ways which can lead to breakthroughs even. So the other kind of cool thing was a quote in here that says, "Failure is painful, but it also instructs." What a great message to kind of process and understand, because the most painful lessons are the most that we get our most attention to that, which is interesting and kind of cool. Continuing on in the chapter. So we are talking about the Allied forces in World War II. So the Allied forces actually chose that disadvantage battlefield on purpose. Churchill knew that they would have to take their first stand against the Germans somewhere, but to do that and lose in Europe would be a disastrous for morale. So, going back to the previous chapter on kind of talking about ambition and aggression when it comes to obstacles and using action to take care of them, that is what they are working for. So, to turn that completely around to the other side, the iteration principle here that's being talked about is that we're gonna fail, and we're gonna fail often, so we might as well fail on someone else's turf. Because essentially, if the Allied forces and Winston Churchill would have made their first stand and got defeated and lost in their home territory, they would have probably lost the war. So this is why it's almost to the point where you can have fun or know that you can give yourself a huge leash when it comes to failure to say, you know what, go to that area or go to this section of your business or whatever, and just try and experiment. And when you do that, that can almost give you an advantage to take that information back home to strengthen the things that are going well. Back to the book here. The British learned how to fight the Germans, and early on they learned mostly by failure. That was acceptable because they anticipated a learning curve and planned for it. They welcomed it because they knew, like Grant and Edison did, what it meant. Victory further down the road. As a result, the Allied troops Hitler faced in Italy were far better than those he faced in Africa, and the ones he ultimately faced in France and Germany were better still. So, really, what this is driving home is that they played the long game, and it's okay to play the long game in business, in life, in war, because you are then giving yourself permission to really kind of cast out as many attempts as you need, knowing that the more you cast out in a constructive manner, the more purpose and more experimental feedback you're going to have coming in to then make better decisions as a compounding effect. So that's really good stuff. The only way we allow failure to really conquer us is to not learn from it and to build a house in it and live in it permanently. So this is another quote that I had written down. Kind of misspoke a little bit on that, so I'll come back. So the only way we allow failure to really conquer us, A, is not to learn from it at all. B is to build a house in it metaphorically, meaning we are living in the essence of being a failure or I failed at XYZ, and then living there permanently, not being able to move on from those moments. That is really dangerous. So if you've ever tried a business and failed, if you ever did something and failed, and you're constantly beating yourself up over that, that's not a good thing, because then you're going to miss out on a lot of great living opportunities or ability to move forward. And then to round out this kind of strategy, if you will, so it's time you understand that the world is telling you something with each and every failure and action. It's feedback giving you precisely instructions on how to improve. It's trying to wake you up from your cluelessness. It's trying to teach you something. Listen. Lessons come hard only if you are deaf to them. Don't be. Be able to see and understand the world this way is part and a parcel of overturning obstacles. Here, a negative becomes a positive. We turn what would otherwise be a disappointment into an opportunity. Failure shows us the way by showing us what isn't the way. So, great way to round out today's lesson and covering this. I've loved that you guys have continued to read with me, and we'll continue to read into the next chapter. But really, just to kind of summarize everything, hopefully you're now seeing failure as a new and fresh perspective to fail often, fail regularly, learn from failure, and if you have failed, what is the lesson in that failure? So, thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, and let's get to the next chapter.